everyone, and welcome to GFC, the latest podcast on German football culture. My name is Rick, speaking to you from sunny California, and I'm here with my good friend Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Rick. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and as usual, I'm tuning in from Germany. Rick and I prepared another great episode for you guys today.
Correct. Today, we resume with our regular format covering unmatched moments, fantastic takeaways, burning issues in global trouble, and watch-worthy matchups ahead in Sketchballers. So what do you say, Alex? Shall we get started?
Of course, Rick. Let's kick it off.
Bundesliga action is back. This weekend really reflects a two-class league, in my opinion, Alex. The rich teams, after 3 games, are all up top. So Bayern, Dortmund, Leipzig covering the places 1, 2, 3. And some of the small budget clubs are all the way at the bottom. So I'm wondering if we won't see any surprises this year. And, who can push up top or could slide down by surprise. It has definitely been more of a predictable start. What is your take on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, so far the Bundesliga one doesn't really have any big surprises. I was hoping a little bit that the teams who got promoted from Bundesliga 2 would play a bigger role, but maybe they just need a few more match days to really get used to the high quality in Bundesliga 1. We've seen, for example, newbie Kiel, and I believe we're both gonna talk about it later on during the episode, really having a super tough time. And I just, as you said, the Bundesliga is almost like a two-class type of society. And if the season continues the way it has started, it will probably just get worse. But nonetheless, there are always some surprises, or at least one surprise. Maybe Union Berlin could play a good role this season. I see them playing a fairly stable couple of matches so far. So, yeah.
I think you're right. They're back on track. They play a similar football than they used to play, 2 or 3 years back. Actually, that type of football that also got them into the Champions League. Very stable defensively, and then good at set pieces. They only need a corner, a free kick from a promising positions. Then they have a couple of guys in the box that have some good presence there. So yeah, they could be. I don't think they will have anything to do with relegation, and they could be a contender for for some of the higher spots for sure. That might be the only small club, as you said, that has a chance to show us some surprises this year. But let's go to Bundesliga 2, which is definitely the class that has a little bit of more surprises to it. It's a lot different. We have a very broad field of top teams and contenders for promotion. The biggest names in that league, with Schalke, Cologne or Köln, and Berlin, are performing mediocre. Too bad so far, based on their expectations. I think in Schalke it's actually getting a little bit tight there, and there's some conflict happening between fans and team already. And it seems like only Hamburg is performing to expectations. They had a 5-0 win this weekend again over Regensburg. But all the way up top, we have quite some surprises with Karlsruhe leading up the table. Düsseldorf, they got the same amount of points. And then on the third place, we have Magdeburg, which certainly nobody expected there. I would say Karlsruhe and Düsseldorf definitely with underdog chances to compete for promotion. In Magdeburg's case, we expected them more in the fight for relegation, and we will see how that continues over the season. But for now, they're playing a role up there. So,
yeah, perfect example that Bundesliga 2 is probably the most competitive professional league in Europe these days. We've talked about it before. It's interesting to watch because they're just, yeah, it's totally unpredictable. Any team really could potentially be relegated. Any team could potentially be promoted. And we've seen it again with Schalke, right? This is a massive club. And after a couple of match days, the fire in the club is already burning. And we know when the heat is on at Schalke, it's really, really difficult to put out the fire and just continue working calmly. It's never calm at Schalke, so I believe they're gonna have a really tough time if they don't get their act together. And this is a team that has been playing in the Champions League just a couple of years ago. They certainly don't belong where they are right now. And I almost want to say they don't know how the fight for relegation in Bundesliga 2 works. Same goes for Cologne and Berlin. Now, frankly, these two have a bit more experience in Bundesliga 2. But it's definitely not where they should be.
Yeah, Schalke only had that one season, and they managed to get promoted back into the Bundesliga 1 in the same year. So you're right, they never really played, at least not in the last 30 years. For potentially even getting relegated to the third league, that's not something that they're used to. But for both teams, for Schalke and for Cologne goes, you need to be at 100% of your performance for
every match day.
Yeah. If you look at the chances Cologne had in their home game against Magdeburg, Cologne should have won this game probably 6-1, 6-2, right? At the end, they lost it 2-1. And there were a couple of players were saying in the interviews after the game, nobody thought that Magdeburg can actually win this, but they did. And it's because you have to, like you said, Bundesliga 2 is so tight, and you have to be at your best game all the time. And everyone has to work together, because it can go in one direction or the other at any time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and when you take a closer look at Karlsruhe and their current success, it's actually less of a surprise to me that they're all the way up top. They've been working very consistently with the same coach, Christian Eicher, since 2020. There's a clear philosophy and gradually improvement season over season. With the newly renovated stadium also, they have the right infrastructure in place now, and they can actually make another run for the Bundesliga. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in the big league next year again. What about you, Alex?
I can totally see that. It wouldn't be the first time this happens in Karlsruhe. They have a long history in Bundesliga 1, so they also know how to get promoted. They know how to fight for relegation. They've spent a few really dire years in Bundesliga 3. And as you said, now they've been working consistently. I'm a big friend of keeping it consistent, just keeping up the good work. And the results will speak for themselves. So if the other big clubs, the so-called favorites, don't do the job right, hey, then it's totally up to Karlsruhe or Magdeburg or maybe a Düsseldorf again to take the crown.
Yeah, it will certainly shift the Bundesliga 1 again in a new direction. It's been a league that has transformed a lot. Certainly that transformation also has added to the attractiveness of Bundesliga 2, as we discussed before. But yeah, I don't know. This was one of the weekends again where I got way more excited about the games in Bundesliga 2, and I can only hope that we will get some spice added to the Bundesliga 1 by some coaching changes that might be coming soon, or whatever might happen there. There's a few teams where we will discuss later in our Clubble Trouble category as well, where things are already coming up to the surface that might change the season a bit. So yeah, we can only hope for more action there. But Let's stay real quick on the western side of Germany, since you just addressed Düsseldorf. There's a neighboring club that celebrated a big birthday this week. Alex, why don't you enlighten us?
Yes, exactly. And I would be in fact very keen to hear this person's opinion on the difference between Bundesliga 1 and 2, because he has been he's become famous, or he's known for having a very strong opinion on things. And this man's name is Günther Netzer. And I want to say happy birthday, Günther Netzer, a true legend of German football. He celebrated his 80th birthday this week. And just to maybe look back on who Günther Netzer is and a little bit about his career. So he played, his position was the classic attacking midfielder, a proper number 10, probably one of the most brilliant playmakers of his time, and probably one of the most brilliant playmakers ever. He played around the same time as Johann Cruyff. So in a way, I mean, of course, they were not exactly the same type of player, but they both were extremely important pieces in their respective clubs. Initially, he rose to fame at Borussia Mönchengladbach in the early 1970s. He won 2 Bundesliga titles there, and then he went on to actually join Real Madrid. In fact, Netzer at that time was the first German player to ever play for Real. And after his career, he then became a football manager for Bundesliga club Hamburger SV. And there he celebrated a couple more successes. First and foremost, the title in the Champions League in 1983. And of course, you and I, we're from that generation. We will never forget Günther Netzer's appearances on live TV alongside his partner Gerhard Delling, where he was commenting a lot of memorable games of the German national team. They were a very interesting duo. So, once again, happy birthday, Günther.
Absolutely, yeah. And if I compare his overall career as a player and then later as a manager, there's really, especially in that time, the 1970s, 1980s, there's really one guy that took a similar route than Netzer and was another innovator, which is Uli Hoeneß. And we all know his story and the successes that he was able to achieve with Bayern Munich. So Netzer next to Hoeneß, 2 guys that really understood also the football business early on and made more out of their fame as a football player than just simply being that player. They were smart businessmen, and they were really innovators and set the stage for clubs and for other players to become more than just a player, especially after their careers were over. Yeah, and with that, we're at that point where we can go into our first category of the day. Here is Unmatched Moments. Unmatched Moments of the Beautiful Game. Alex, you're going to kick this off for us today. What was your unmatched moment of the week?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. My unmatched moment was probably the top game of the second Bundesliga on Saturday between Cologne and Magdeburg. You already touched base on it in the beginning. Cologne played at home this time in front of, again, a sold-out stadium of 50,000 fans. And I'm just going to say this once again. This is a club that just got relegated. In many other clubs, you don't see such a passionate and loyal fan base. At the same time, we have clubs in Bundesliga 1 who are not even able to fill their stadium of 30,000 when they play against the current Bundesliga champion. But nonetheless, that's just my 2 cents. Let's continue talking about Cologne instead. They actually pulled off a really great game, super high pressure, attacking football, creating lots of chances for themselves all throughout the game. But so by the end of the 90 plus something minutes, they had fired more than 30 shots on target. but only managed to score 1 goal. So once again, a lack of efficiency that eventually cost them to end up losing that game. Because Magdeburg, on the other hand, only had a handful of chances throughout the game, but they finished twice very clinically and actually backed the 3 points in the end. So again, an unpredictable game that just reflects the beauty of Bundesliga 2, and of course the traveling Magdeburg fans were going absolutely nuts. They're also one of these crowds who are, very avid travelers. They brought a solid crowd with them to Cologne, and of course celebrated their team's performance with, some fireworks and flares and pyrotechnics, since it was an evening game. So you got to make it look beautiful. And Magdeburg is now up there on the table with 11 points out of 5 games, not a single defeat yet. So yes, it'll be interesting once again to see where the journey is going for those two teams. It's just the league is so unpredictable.
Yeah, I think you picked a great upset here that really speaks for the quality of the league, and yeah, you just gotta love football for that. Yeah. Let us look into my unmatched moment. I actually picked Bayern Munich this week. It's kind of ironic because I had them on the transfer loser list last week. And Holstein Kiel is certainly not the highest level opponent they will face this season. But regardless, I thought the performance Saturday night was impressive. The fastest goal of the season so far, scored after 15 seconds by Jamal Musiala. And then 13 minutes into the game, it was already 3-0. And, we've seen these type of Bayern wipeouts quite a bit over the past years, but it was different and really unmatched for me because of the new style that you can see in the Bayern game. And for me, it's the first time the Vincent Kompany ID is coming through. They were really aggressive in their pressing game against the ball. There were a few times where they lost the ball in the half of Kiel and pressed the ball with an incredible speed with the entire team. It literally looked like a bee swarm, and Kiel was so overwhelmed at times, and that I thought the game would certainly end higher than 6-1 at the end. Of course, it took out a little bit of the speed in the second half, and then there was a phase when Kiel actually scored the 5-1 where they could have easily scored the 5-2, 5-3, where Bayern kind of fell back into those old behaviors that we saw parts of last season and the season before. But if they manage to keep that aggressive pressing game up over 90 minutes, then it's going to be hard to beat Bayern this season. So that was really unmatched for me. It was a nice game. Again, 6-1, all the way up there in the most northern part of Germany in Kiel. And for that reason, I picked them this week.
Yeah, very entertaining game, certainly. I have to admit, I saw the goals. I also saw the situations that led to the goals. I mean, to be fair, of course it was a good game, and I think it's important for this somewhat new Bayern team with their new coach trying to implement a new style to gain some confidence through these type of games where they really dominate the opponent and score a lot of goals. But those first 3 goals that you mentioned after 15 minutes, in a way, they were almost like own goals. Like what the Kiel defense played back there looked like slapstick comedy almost, and they were giving those balls away right in front of the box. And you have a striker like Harry Kane up there. He sometimes had like no opponent, no defender anywhere around him, and then of course one touch football, and he's right in front of the box. He's going to score, no question. So anyway, I appreciate the fact that Bayern played somewhat well, but this is also certainly not the standard they should be up against. I'm sure we will see a whole different a whole different level when they start playing their Champions League. I always wanted to say group stage matches. As we've learned, it's no longer a group stage. The league stage matches this week against Zagreb.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, also Zagreb probably not, the top tier team that they will have to beat at one point this season. So, yeah, fair point. We don't know quite where Bayern stands, but if this is the style again that Vincent Kompany is gonna bring into this Bayern team, and certainly if they can stay stable, right? They also scored a lot of goals last season in the first half, and then a lot of times you saw them leaning back and relaxing a little bit in the second half, and all of a sudden, they get the 2-1, and then they get the equalizer, and they end up losing the game 3-2. So that's what we will see later on. But yeah, I think with that, Alex, let's move into fantastic takeaways and see what happened on the stands this week. Fantastic takeaways, highlights from the stands.
Yeah, Rick, I'm going to start again. My fantastic takeaway number 1. I have 2 this time. So number 1 is actually from the same game, Kiel against Bayern. And as you said, Kiel obviously lost that match with a lot of goals. But they also scored their first ever home goal in the Bundesliga, and they scored it against Bayern Munich, so it was a somewhat special goal. So again, although the team was already down by 5, the Kiel supporters properly celebrated that goal almost as if it was an equalizer, and just, showing some love and support for the players. They really had a rough start into the season, and then Bayern comes on and just puts 6 goals into their net. So showing that love and support was really cool to see, and it was just a sweet moment. Fantastic takeaway number 2 is from the match between Borussia Mönchengladbach and VfB Stuttgart, where the Stuttgart fans, the traveling Stuttgart fans, I have to say, showed a really nice choreography in the away sector, where they celebrated their upcoming return to the European stage this season. As we all know, they are playing Real Madrid this coming week, and they were showing a slogan from one of their chants that translates into something like, "After all this shit is over, we're going on a journey again," and then it says Stuttgart International. It's a pretty fun song, actually. And cool choreography overall in the stands. And on top of that, they managed to take those 3 points back home. So it was definitely a perfect day for all the traveling fans and all the Stuttgart supporters at home. And, I really hope that this team finally found a bit more stability now. We analyzed it last week. They lost a couple of key players and bought a few new ones they had to integrate in a relatively short period of time, with the Euros in between in the summer. So I really hope they can find their form, so to speak, and can improve further over the next few match days, which is something they will certainly need to do, because all those additional games in the Champions League are coming on. So, the match calendar will be pretty busy in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Demirovic with a really great performance there in this game. You can't really see any sign of Serhou Guirassy missing there in this offense. Undav and then Demirovic are really making up for it. So I agree with you. I hope that they're good prepared for Tuesday with this win in Gladbach. And for our listeners, again, Alex just mentioned the choreography and that slogan that Stuttgart is using there. We are going to provide you with some additional content on that on our social media platforms again. We just signed up for Instagram as well, so you're going to get some news going forward, not only on Facebook, but also on Instagram, with additional information on the episodes and some of this picture material as well from the stadiums. So you can soak in a little bit deeper in the German football culture.
And of course, leave us a follow.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you, Alex, for that. And then let's touch on my fantastic takeaway of this week as well. I actually picked a Bundesliga 2 matchup between Karlsruhe and Schalke. Two great teams. Karlsruhe, a team from the southwest of Germany, a founding member of the Bundesliga, great supporter crew. And then, of course, Schalke 04. We touched on them earlier. You said a few sentences on where Schalke belongs, which is certainly the top flight of German football, the football at Bundesliga 1. They had this Friday night matchup in Karlsruhe. Karlsruhe won the game. Had a nice, the fans had a nice choreography to start the game with smaller and bigger flags, a couple of flares. So it added to the Friday night atmosphere. And then the Schalke supporters, of course, came with a big crowd again. Also had, some nice support materials in there. And it was very loud. It was a great atmosphere. And I got to say, I really like this new stadium that Karlsruhe has there. I know your opinion on that. Usually, Alex, you would say, yeah, it's a standard modern football arena. And it is. It is, but it is definitely better than the old Wildpark stadium, which was built in the 50s and had that big track around. And yeah, even though I
know what you mean. It's look, the old stadium had a character. I have to say this.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah,
but as a visitor, it was just odd. You felt so far away from the action, and it was just no longer up to date. They actually built that new stadium on top of it, right? It's not like it's the same, at least the same property, so to speak.
Yeah, and I've been to the old Wildpark Stadion several times, and then the last time probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm so curious to go back there and see how the whole park around it changed and how they transition that whole area. It always fascinates me when something so old and so established just completely goes away, and they change the whole setup around it. So you're absolutely right. It's at the same spot, but that area completely transformed. So I'm curious, and I want to go back there one day.
So we should go explore it. I'm sure. I'm almost want to believe the atmosphere has to be much better. Like with a proper roof above their heads and just much closer to the action, it's gonna make a difference. So good stuff there. But with that, I would say let's move on to our next section, which is Clubble Trouble.
Clubble Trouble, painful to watch. So it has been a kind of quiet week. At least it felt like it. A story that certainly made the biggest wave this week was former German footballer and expert Didi Hamann commenting on Jamal Musiala, which most or a lot of Germans are proud of because he's just such a jewel and is really one of the most promising young German footballers that we currently have. But Didi Hamann thinks his playing style is too selfish, and he said he would trade Musiala for Florian Wirtz of Bayer Leverkusen any day because Wirtz is the better team player. So a general debate broke loose from that, Alex. The question is, are the Germans too critical with their talented players? Other cultures certainly deal differently with their young talents and build them more up. The Germans tend to be very critical. So shouldn't we build up a guy like Musiala more?
Yeah, totally. Look, you said Didi Hamann would like to trade Musiala for Wirtz because he's the better player. Well, first of all, luckily Didi Hamann has nothing to say, so he's not going to make any executive decisions. A, and B, you're absolutely right. We have these two very, very bright talents. I think both of them are raw diamonds. They just turned 21, man. They have another at least 10 to 12 years ahead of them at a super high level, and they have the best years ahead of them. So let's just give them a little bit of time. They are all ready, and even Didi Hamann will have to agree to that, I suppose. They are already the backbone of the German national team, and they are certainly one of the backbones of their respective clubs, and that is something that just needs to be respected at such a young age, because it's not just the football, it's not just the sport itself, it's the pressure, the publicity, the being a celebrity almost, and all these kids looking up to you. You have the media asking you questions and trying to it's just so much pressure for a bunch of young kids. And of course we should support that, and we should also cut them some slack, let them play football. And of course one could say Musiala needs to, instead of taking the shot, he should see the player next to him or a better positioned player from time to time. But hey, if you don't attempt to shoot, you never score goals. And he scored 3 of them during the Euros, which made him the best German striker, essentially, of the tournament. So, long story short, I'm not a biggest fan of Didi Hamann's expert views, as you may have noticed. Mm-hmm. And I just think let's just enjoy these guys playing the football that they play. And it's a golden generation, and for sure we should support them. And they're going to be enormously important for their teams and for German football overall. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I do agree with that. It certainly doesn't seem to touch Musiala in any way or affect him in any way. He is, not a man of big words anyways when you see him at the interviews. So same goes for Florian Wirtz, by the way. Those guys, to me, they just seem to want to go out there and just play, which is what they should do. They also shouldn't be too concerned to win any individual trophy, right? When it comes to the Ballon d'Or, and I hear all these things, maybe Wirtz and Musiala are going to be contenders for it. It's certainly, as Germans, we're not used to having a lot of German players in the debate and the conversation there usually anyways. And I don't think that these individual trophies matter much, right? In Germany, we always grew up, and Thomas Müller stated that several times in interviews as well. The team is important, and yes. We are taught to act as a contributor within the team, and that's the strength of the German national team. That's why they competed for so many World Cups and European Championship over all these decades, and I think that's something that we should keep as the identity of German football. And I think we can be very happy to have Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz for that, and part of our future German teams, whether it would be in the Bundesliga or in a national stage. But we should just let them play and don't add so much to these conversations about Ballon d'Or and who's the better one of those two guys, and should you play one or the other, or can they both play in one team? Just let them play, enjoy watching them, and hope that they can be good contributors to a overall very solid team, which I believe we see right now building up in the German national team. They really seem to be a unity, and as a German, as a fan of the German national team, that's what I want out of them. And everything else is secondary to me. I'd certainly would like to see Musiala re-signing in Bayern and staying long in the Bundesliga, so I hope for that. But everything else doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, exactly. And the titles will come. I'm a firm believer of Wirtz and Musiala winning a title for Germany in the next 10 years. So And if Didi Hamann is going to be a TV expert during any one of those tournaments, then I'm sure he will also be happy for them. All right.
I hope so.
Let's move on. I actually found a very interesting case this week. It was flying a little below the radar, but it could potentially spark a really interesting discussion, and it kind of fits very well to the topic that we touched base now, and it's about youth football and talent development in Germany. So just to maybe do a quick recap, what has happened already about 3 years ago. There was an actual police raid at the offices of the Bundesliga club FC Augsburg. And now 3 years later, the public prosecutor's office has in fact filed criminal charges against 2 employees of the club. And those individuals are accused of offenses relating to payroll accounting at the club's youth training center, youth academy. So back then in 2021, a bunch of investigative researchers had revealed that there were apparently some irregularities in the payment of employees in youth academies, not just in Augsburg, but at several clubs in the first and second division. And as a result of that, customs investigators inspected 3 of Augsburg's properties, including the club's head office in August 2021. So one of the defendants was in fact accused of employing workers without even paying the minimum wage, which is ironic when you think about the amounts of money that are being paid in the Bundesliga and in professional football in general. So this was also announced and confirmed by the public prosecutor's office. And as a result of that, the club had essentially not paid over 100,000 euros in social security contributions over that period of the employment. And now a penalty order has been applied against another employee for allegedly employing another person on a fake self-employment basis, also during a similar time period. And that apparently cost over 60,000 euros in social security contributions that effectively haven't been paid or were never paid. No. And while this is already quite shocking, the big FC Bayern was also investigated in a very similar fashion. And this happened last year in June 2023. Bayern had to pay outstanding social security contributions of 200,000 euros. And in addition to that, nearly 50,000 euros in late payment penalties. So again, this wasn't a case that really made it to the surface, but it just shows you that there seems to be something going fundamentally wrong in German youth academies.
Yeah, look, and I've heard several stories before. I actually saw a documentary on coaching before in the youth academies, and I think there's a lot of more clubs that are guilty of let's say in the widest sense of underpaying their youth academy coaches. It's just the fact that those clubs need to use the money for their first teams, right, to compete for the competitions where the money is made at the end of the day. So the Bundesliga leagues that are playing in the cup competitions, etc. So they need to put it into players essentially for their first team, for their main squad. But what they really should do is pay their coaches in the youth academy fair too, as usually those are full-time positions. We know what we're asking young kids to do nowadays in these academies already to make it to the professional stages. So the same amount of work needs to be put in by these youth coaches. It's a full-time job. but they're getting paid minimum wage. And why is that? Because they also get the carrot, hold in front of them and say, here, chase this carrot. If you do well with this team, you're going to make up to the next stage, and eventually your career might be a Bundesliga coach. So that's what they're all driving for, right? They want to get out of these minimum wage positions, and they want to become the big Bundesliga coach. But what they also need for that is success. So they're letting the young kids play in a certain system already, instead of focusing on the individual strengths of the players, and really making sure that our youth players are getting a good and solid foundation, and also get the chance to work on their individual skills to really make a difference in the game. So I think it's such a complex topic that adds to the issues that we currently see in German football, with not enough talented player coming out. We're always complaining that we have youth players now that are already pressed into a certain system, into a certain playing style. Well, it comes all from these coaches that want to advance themselves, right? By showing successes with their teams and how great they can coach. And it comes again from the fact that they all want to make it up to the top leagues and get paid the top dollars or the top euros, because in their current position, they're just going to get paid minimum wage. So very complex topic.
Yeah, they definitely need to be paid appropriately. And, you've mentioned it, the throughput of young players is just not enough. And then on top of that, the few ones that actually make it are then being overanalyzed by people like Didi Hamann. So maybe he should take a minimum wage job at a youth academy and share his wisdom over there.
I do appreciate former players that take that step and take on a coaching role in the youth academies of their former clubs or so. Maybe, and certainly, someone that played 10, 15 years in the Bundesliga can probably afford only pocketing those $400. They made a good salary over the course of their career.
I think so too.
And they're giving something back. So maybe that's more of a doable solution.
Exactly. All right. But speaking of the big games, let's move on to our last category for today. Schedule ballers.
Good idea, Alex. Schedule ballers. What's kicking next? Yeah, of course, we have to talk about the Champions League in the schedule baller category. One game that I have on the radar, and you probably as well. I know this is a game that many of us are looking forward to this week. The matchup tomorrow night between Real Madrid and VfB Stuttgart. I'm really looking forward to see Undaf Mittelstadt and friends performing at the Bernabeu. I think they will go out there and do their very best. Hoeneß will certainly send them out there pumped up, and they could be good for a surprise. So what do you feel about it, Alex?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly my Tuesday evening is blocked, that's for sure. I will be watching that game. Real Madrid at the Bernabeu is just a special atmosphere, and it's a different level altogether. So I'm very happy for Stuttgart that they're back at that level. And yeah, you're right. They have nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. The pressure will certainly be on Real Madrid. They are by far the best team of this competition in its history, in the history of the competition. They're the current champions. So of course they're playing a team that hasn't played internationally for several years. So yes, it's up to Real to perform, and we know that Stuttgart can counterattack very quickly, and they could very well be up for a surprise. So mm-hmm. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed, and I will be for sure sitting in front of the TV no matter what.
Yeah, I'm gonna put myself out there and say I think this is gonna be a 2-2 at the end, with Undaf definitely scoring one. Demirovic with the other one for Stuttgart. Now I'm going in very much detail, but I think they will catch Real Madrid by surprise. I don't think it's going to be enough for a win, but I see them taking away a point from Madrid. And again, kudos to Hoeneß as well for what he did. He brought all the players to Madrid, regardless if they're on the roster or not, just to soak in this experience. So it's no matter how the game will end, it will be somewhat of a team building event, seminar, so to say.
Yeah.
And they're all going to go out there and enjoy the night together, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a memorable experience for all of them. And think about Union Berlin in the Champions League last year, the year before. They had Real Madrid at the brink of a defeat. So I almost want to say Stuttgart has more quality than Union Berlin had back then. So
agree.
Let's see what happens.
With your fans in the back and just this, again, it's a mental game as well. If you go out with the right attitude. And the same goes for Real Madrid. If they take it a little bit lightly and they say, okay, who is Stuttgart? I'll tell you, Stuttgart is going to be there, and Hoeneß is going to send them out with the right attitude. So we'll see.
And there's actually before we forget, there's a former Stuttgart player on Real Madrid's team with Antonio Rüdiger. He made his first steps as a professional player in Stuttgart.
Right on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then on the weekend, I'm looking forward to a matchup in Bundesliga 2 again, especially from a fan perspective. So I picked Cologne versus Düsseldorf for the schedule baller category as well. For one, they're neighboring cities. One was built on the left side of the Rhine. The other one was built on the right side. At least that's what the locals say. In reality, both cities nowadays stretch on both sides of this river. But they're neighboring cities in North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. And so the fans, of course, love each other. Just kidding. Of course, it's the exact opposite. There's been, decades of rivalry between Cologne and Düsseldorf. And while they played many years in different leagues, in the 70s, 80s, it was more of a Bundesliga matchup. But then both had their ups and downs. So it's going to be a spicy matchup. And maybe something worth covering in the fantastic takeaways next week.
Yeah, they dislike each other from the bottom of their hearts, and not just football, but it even goes down to the type of beer they drink. You know that very well, I believe. We've made one or the other trip to the area. Mm-hmm. People in Düsseldorf, they drink the Alt beer, how they call it, and Cologne is obviously the very famous Kölsch beer.
Mm-hmm. And they drink it by the meter. And in Cologne, they drink the Kölsch, and they drink it in a circle of 12. So don't make a mistake and order a circle in Düsseldorf or a meter in Cologne. They will look at you funny, and they take their beer serious.
You might get kicked out of the bar if that happens. Well, I have a very special game on my calendar for next weekend, and it's also a Bundesliga 2 match, in fact. It's the top game, a beautiful top game of the match day between Kaiserslautern and Hamburg. And I have just today secured a ticket, so I will be back at the Betzenberg Stadium, the famous Fritz-Walter Stadium. I'll be watching that game. I'm sure it's going to be another sold-out stadium with a crowd of 50,000 or so, under floodlights, late-night kickoff. So it's going to be a perfect football day. And I'm sure next week's episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about my stadium experience as well. I remember the last time Hamburg was a guest at the Fritz-Walter Stadium. It was literally a football fest, and I hope we're gonna be able to enjoy a similar brilliant day with like two fantastic clubs. But nonetheless, the excitement is there. The crowds are going to be there, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic atmosphere once again.
Yeah, I'm jealous. That sounds like a great football evening for you the next week, and we're looking forward to hear more when we meet for next week's episode. For those of you that want to follow the action again, ESPN has all the Bundesliga 1 games this week on. Just took a peek on what game they will have for the Bundesliga 2 next weekend. So they will be broadcasting Schalke versus Darmstadt on Friday, which will be 12:30 Eastern time. And on Saturday, they will actually have the Cologne versus Düsseldorf game on. Kaiserslautern versus Hamburg, not live on US TV this week, but live on German TV on
Yes,
Sports
that's right.
1. So some of you might want to stream that still through the German TV providers. And yeah, then we're looking forward to hear more from Alex next week. But I think this is it, Alex, actually, what we had on the agenda for today. I'm looking forward to a great football week with the international games in the Champions League and Europa League. And we're going to have lots to talk about next week. So thanks for tuning in again. Make sure you leave us a like and a comment and follow us on our channels. Appreciate your support. Bye-bye.
Take it easy, everyone. Bye-bye.